There is a prison that has no walls, no chains, and no guards, yet billions of people walk into it every single day. It is not built from stone or steel, but from whispers, glances, and silent expectations. It is the prison of fearing judgment. And you have felt its grip more times than you care to admit it. The hesitation before speaking, the self-censorship before expressing a honest thought, and the way you mold yourself into what others might accept. This is the weight of invisible eyes pressing down on your soul. You might not see the bars, but you feel every time you betray your true self just to be tolerated, liked, or approved. The Stoics knew this fear well, even in their own time. Rome was a society obsessed with reputation, hierarchy, and appearances. A senator could lose his standing because of whispers in the Senate. A philosopher could be mocked into silence. A soldier could be branded a coward by a single comment from his commander. Yet, Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private journals, reminded himself again and again, it is not the opinion of others that troubles us, but the value we place it upon. In these words lie the key to understanding this prison. The judgment of others is powerless unless we hand them the chain that binds us. Think of your own life. How many decisions have you delayed? How many opportunities have you abandoned because you feared what other people might say? Perhaps you wanted to speak in a meeting but thought, they will laugh at me if I'm wrong. Perhaps you wanted to pursue a new path but thought, my family will think I've lost my mind. Perhaps you even silenced your own feelings because to reveal them would be invite to ridicule. All of these moments are not simply missed chances. They are moments where you surrendered sovereignty over yourself. You became an actor in a play you never auditioned for, reading lines written by the invisible audience of your imagination. The irony is that the fear of judgment is often misplaced. Most people are far too preoccupied with their own struggles, insecurities, and desires to care about you more than a fleeting instant. You imagine the crowd watching your every move, but in truth, each person is lost in their own storm. And those who do judge you, their judgments reveal far more about their character than about yours. Epictetus warned, when someone criticizes you, remember, they act from their own opinion. It is not what is said that hurts, but the value you attach to it. In other words, judgment is only poison if you swallow it. Still, this fear lingers. Why? Because human beings are social creatures. From birth, survival depended on belonging to the tribe. Rejection once meant death. And through centuries have passed and our world has changed, that ancient instinct still whispers in our nervous system. Stay safe. Stay accepted. Do not risk exile. To feel the sting of judgment is, at its core, to feel the echo of being cast out from the fire circle into the darkness. But the Stoics remind us, you are no longer a helpless child. You are not at the mercy of the tribe. You carry your reason, the ability to distinguish what is good from what is empty. The approval is empty. Virtue is good. Learn to tell the difference, and the visible chains begin to dissolve. Picture Marcus Aurelius again, sitting in his tent while the Roman army sleeps. He is emperor of the most powerful empire on earth. And yet, even he writes pages about himself not to care for the applause or the insults of the masses. If the man who ruled millions struggle with this, but there is comfort here. Even the greatest among us wrestle with the same fears, and they leave us guidance on how to endure. The first step, the Stoic says, is awareness. See the prison for what it is. Catch yourself in the act of bending to imaginary judges. Notice when you silence your truth because of the audience in your head. Awareness cracks open the door. The second step is reflection. Ask, what is truly at stake if they judge me? Will I lose my virtue? No. Will I lose my reason? No. At worst, I may lose my reputation, but the reputation lies outside of my control. To care for it too deeply is to chase smoke. And the third step is courage. The courage to act according to your principles, even if laughter follows. Remember, the laughter of fools do not stain the wise. But here is a paradox worth embracing. The fear of judgment itself can become your teacher. If you learn to lean into it instead of running away, You discover the secret strength it hides. When you feel the anxiety rises into your chest as you speak your mind, you are not being destroyed. You are being tempered, like iron placed in a fire. You emerge sharper, stronger, more unshakable. Each moment of judgment survived is a scar that proves you are free. And freedom, in the Stoic sense, is not political, it's internal. It is the freedom to remain unbent, even when mocked. It is the freedom to walk your path without apology. There will be those who misunderstand you. There will be those who call you arrogant, strange, foolish, or naive. But what is their alternative? To live as a shadow, pleasing everyone but yourself? To spend your years walking on eggshells, never upsetting anyone, and dying in the quiet grief of never having been truly alive? That is the true tragedy. Better to be judged for living authentically than to be praised for living as a ghost. The Stoics did not promise that ignoring judgment would be painless. On the contrary, it will sting. It will feel the heat of disapproval. But pain is not the enemy. Dependence is. The more you expose yourself to the fears of judgment, the more it loses its teeth. And soon you will discover something extraordinary. The voices that once terrified you become nothing more than background noise, like distant thunder that never reaches your skin. This is the invitation of Stoicism, to step out of the prison, to embrace the fear instead of fleeing from it, and to discover that beyond judgment lies true freedom. For the world will always have eyes, but only you decide whether those eyes are your masters or merely passing shadows on the wall.
If you study human behavior closely, you will notice a hidden craving more dangerous than any substance, more enslaving than any chain. It is the craving for approval, to be praised, to be accepted, to be recognized. This is the silent drug that intoxicates almost every soul. And like any drug, the more you consume it, the weaker you become without it. This craving is not new. It is stitched into the fabric of our being. From childhood, we learn to smile when praised, to fear the frown of disapproval, to measure our worth by the reactions of others. A child draws a picture and rushes to show it to their parents, not for the joy of the drawing itself, but for the applause that follows. A student studies hard, not simply to gain knowledge, but to win the approval of teachers. An adult works tirelessly, often not to live in harmony with virtue, but to be noticed, envied, and congratulated. Thus, we are conditioned, year after year, to seek our reflection, not in the mirror of reason, but in the eyes of others. The Stoics saw this addiction as one of the greatest threats to the soul. Epictetus warned that those who live for approval are never free, because their peace rises and falls with the applause of the crowd. Imagine a man who wakes in the morning strong and proud because others have spoken well of him, and by night he is broken and ashamed because a rumor spread against him. Such a man is not alive by his own strength, but by the breath of others. He is like a ship with no anchor, tossed violently by every wind of opinion. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, knew the poison of approval intimately. His journals are filled with reminders not to live for reputation, not to chase the affection of the masses. What if the legions turn against me? Because he understood that the masses are fickle. Today they cheer you, tomorrow they condemn you. Today they crown you with flowers, tomorrow they stone you with curses. If your peace depends on this unstable tide, you will never stand firm. The Stoic goal was not to be admired, but to be virtuous. And virtue, as they taught, is complete in itself. But you may ask, what is so wrong with desiring approval? Does it not motivate us to do good, to achieve excellence, to strive for greatness? The answer is subtle. Approval itself is not evil. It is the attachment to it that enslaves us. When you do good deeds for the sake of applause, you corrupt their purity. When you pursue wisdom so that others call you wise, you betray wisdom. When you chase success only for recognition, you are not serving excellence but vanity. Approval becomes the master, and you become the obedient servant, shaping your entire life to win smiles and escape frowns. Seneca once observed, "What you think is the crowd is merely a few voices repeated." Approval is often an illusion, magnified by our fears. You might silence yourself, thinking everyone will disapprove, when in reality, only a handful of people would even notice. And even if they notice, what weight do their judgments carry compared to your own conscience? If you betray your principles to win approval, you may gain the crowd but lose yourself. That is a poor bargain. Consider the modern world. Never has humanity been so addicted to approval as it is today. Social media has turned likes and comments into currency. People no longer live experiences for their own sake, but for the approval they will harvest by posting them. A meal is not eaten until it is photographed and praised. A thought is not shared unless it will collect validation. And when approval is absent, despair follows. Why didn't anyone notice me? Why didn't anyone applaud? Thus, billions of people walk with invisible chains on their wrists, slaves to numbers on a screen. The Stoics would look at this spectacle and shake their heads. They would say, "Why do you waste your life begging for coins that vanish at the touch? Why do you measure your worth by shadows?" Instead, they would instruct you to turn inward. Ask yourself, was my action just? Was it guided by reason? Did it align with nature and virtue? If the answer is yes, then you have all the approval you require. No crowd, no applause, no thunderous ovation is greater than the peace of knowing you lived rightly. But here lies the difficulty. Turning inward feels lonely. Approval feels warm, like a fire in the night. To stand without it is to feel the chill of isolation. And yet, this is exactly the test the Stoics demanded we endure. True strength is forged in solitude. True virtue shines when unobserved. If you need the eyes of others to keep walking straight, you have not yet mastered yourself. Epictetus taught, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Only when you can endure disapproval without faltering have you broken free from the addiction. Let us use an image. Picture a man crossing a desert. He carries two skins of water. One is filled with the clear, refreshing water of his own reason. The other is filled with approval, warm, salty, undrinkable. Yet, in his desperation, he clings to the second skin, hoping it will quench his thirst. But it never does. Only when he learns to drink from the first skin, to trust his own judgment, does he find true sustenance. That is the difference between living for approval and living for virtue. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your life is designed not for your own soul, but for the applause of others? How many choices have you made that were less about what was right and more about what was safe, admired, or conventional? Each one of those choices is a thread in the net of approval, tightening around you. The good news is that you can cut those threads. Slowly, patiently, with each decision guided by principle instead of applause, you slice away at the net until you stand free. The addiction to approval is strong, but it is not invincible. It fades when you expose it for what it is, a trick of the mind, a relic of tribal fear, a counterfeit coin. The Stoics invite you to stand tall in the arena of life, not as an actor begging for applause, but as a soul aligned with reason. Let the crowd cheer or let them boo, it makes no difference. Your performance is for virtue, not for them. And in that stance, you are untouchable. When most people hear criticism or feel the sting of judgment, they treat it as if a court has delivered a final verdict. You are a failure, someone says, and instantly it feels like a sentence has been carved into stone. You are foolish, another whispers, and suddenly the label burns into your skin as if branded by iron. This is the mistake, confusing judgment with truth. The Stoics remind us that what others say is not a verdict, it is merely an opinion. And opinions, no matter how loud, are not facts. Yet here is a deeper truth. Judgment can serve as a mirror. Like a mirror, it shows us a reflection, but it is not always accurate. Some mirrors are warped, bending your image until it is unrecognizable. Some are clouded, showing only shadows and smears. But every mirror, even the broken ones, can be used to learn something. The question is whether you will stare into it blindly, mistaking it for absolute reality, or whether you will use it wisely, seeing what is useful and discarding what is not. Epictetus was blunt about this. He said, if someone tells you that you are wrong and you truly are, then they have done you a favor by pointing it out. But if you are not wrong, then they speak falsely and the fault is theirs, not yours. In this simple teaching lies a profound strategy for dealing with judgment. Instead of fearing it, examine it. If there is truth in the criticism, embrace it as an opportunity to grow. If there is no truth, let it pass as noise. Either way, the judgment cannot harm you unless you hand it power. Consider a craftsman at work, perhaps a potter shaping clay. A passerby criticizes, "The pot looks crooked." The craftsman examines the clay. If indeed it is crooked, he corrects it and becomes better for the feedback. If the pot is sound and the critic is mistaken, the craftsman shrugs and continues. In neither case does he lose his peace. He does not stop working to chase the approval of every voice. He measures his worth by his craft, not by the shifting noise of spectators. So too must we live, steady in our work, grateful for truth when it appears, indifferent to error when it does not. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that when someone judges, they act according to their own understanding, their own values, their own limits. If a man calls you weak because you do not strike back in anger, is he correct? Or is he merely revealing his own belief that rage equals strength? If a woman mocks your simplicity, is she unveiling a flaw in you or her own blindness to the virtue of modesty? Judgments are rarely about you. They are confessions of the judge's mind. To take them as sentences against your soul is to mistake their shadow for reality. And yet, most of us tremble at judgment because we secretly suspect it might be true. This is where courage enters. The Stoic path does not mean ignoring all feedback blindly. That would be arrogance. It means using reason as the filter. You stand before every judgment with calm inquiry. Is this true? Is it useful? Does it align with virtue? If the answer is yes, you accept it gratefully. If no, you discard it without bitterness. This discipline transforms judgment from a tyrant into a teacher. Imagine for a moment that you could live this way. Every insult, every criticism, every raised eyebrow becomes an opportunity. Not an attack, not a condemnation, but a test. Someone calls you arrogant. You reflect, do I act from pride or from principle? If yes, you correct yourself. If no, you walk on untouched. Someone calls you a coward. You reflect, do I avoid duty? Or do I choose reason over recklessness? In this way, you become unshakable, not because you silence all judgment, but because you master its use. The Stoics themselves lay under constant judgment. Socrates was accused of corrupting the youth and sentenced to death. His calm response, drinking the poison without fear, turned the judgment into a mirror that revealed not his corruption, but the injustice of Athens. Epictetus was mocked for his limp, the result of being a slave beaten by his master. Yet he used the insult as proof that the body can be injured, but the mind remains free. Marcus Aurelius, ruling as emperor, was judged daily by citizens, soldiers, and senators. But he wrote to himself, "They may despise me, but can they prevent me from acting justly?" Each judgment became an occasion to look inward, to test his own alignment with virtue. We too live in a world of endless judgment. In every glance, every online comment, every workplace whisper, someone is handing you a mirror. Some mirrors will be warped, designed to mock or wound. Others will be clear, offering a sharp reflection of your flaws. Both can serve you if you do not mistake them for verdicts. Let the insults show you the resilience of your mind. Let the critiques reveal blind spots you must address. Let the slander teach you indifference. In every case, judgment becomes a tool, not a prison. The danger, of course, is clinging too tightly to either. Even praise is a judgment, and often a more dangerous one than criticism. When someone calls you wise, you risk becoming intoxicated by their words, attaching your worth to their approval. When someone calls you foolish, you risk despairing and doubting your own reason. Both are traps if you do not hold fast to the Stoic anchor. Your value lies in your virtue, not in the shifting judgments of others. So the next time you feel judged, pause. Do not rush to defend yourself, nor collapse into shame. Ask instead, what does this reveal? If truth hides within, accept it as a gift. If it is empty, let it dissolve like smoke. Remember that you, not the judge, decide the weight of the verdict. In this way, judgment loses its sting. It becomes a mirror you can glance at briefly before continuing your walk on the path of reason. Because the ultimate sentence is not spoken by others, it is written by your own conscience. And if your conscience is clear, you are free, no matter how loudly the world judges you. Now some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day" so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. If the Stoics of old warned us about the chains of reputation and the tyranny of approval in ancient Rome, what would they say if they walked among us today? For while the world has changed in its clothing, its architecture, its tools, one thing has not changed: our desperate hunger for validation. In fact, in our age, this hunger has grown more insatiable than ever before. We live in a time where the gaze of others has multiplied 1,000-fold, where every action can be captured, broadcast, and judged in an instant. We live, in short, in an empire of judgment. Think about it. In Marcus Aurelius' time, the judgment of others traveled slowly. A whisper in the marketplace, a rumor in the Senate, it could take days or weeks to spread. Today, with a single click, the eyes of millions can fall upon you. Social media has become a coliseum larger than any Rome ever built. Every post, every photo, every thought is thrown into the arena, and the crowd roars its approval with likes or hurls its condemnation with comments. And we, like gladiators, stand in the sand waiting for the crowd's verdict, forgetting that the crowd is fickle, forgetful, and fragmented. This new arena has intensified an ancient weakness. Where once we feared the judgment of a small circle, family, neighbors, colleagues, now we fear the faceless multitude. A stranger on the other side of the world, someone you will never meet, can send a few words that haunt your mind for days. "You are ugly. You are the foolish." And though these words carry no authority, though they come from someone with no knowledge of your life, you let them gnaw at you as if they were carved on tablets of stone. This is modern slavery, when the voice of a stranger holds more weight in your heart than the voice of your own reason. Seneca once said, "What difference does it make how many judge you? You must judge yourself." Yet today, many live as if the number of likes on a screen is a measure of their worth. They chase approval in pixels and despair when those pixels vanish. Entire lives are curated like performances, edited not for truth, but for applause. This is not freedom. This is bondage dressed in glitter. For the man who measures his joy by the reaction of an audience is never free, whether that audience sits in a Roman amphitheater or scrolls through a glowing screen. But let us not deceive ourselves. This slavery extends beyond social media. It is present in workplaces, where careers rise and fall not on excellence, but on perception. It is present in families, where choices are suffocated by fear of disappointing relatives. It is present in friendships, where honesty is sacrificed for belonging. The cage has many shapes, but its bars are always the same: the fear of being judged, the need to be accepted. The Stoic answer to this is not to flee from society, nor to reject every opinion blindly. It is to reclaim sovereignty over the one thing that is yours, your mind. You cannot stop others from judging, but you can refuse to be enslaved by their judgment. You cannot silence the crowd, but you can silence the part of you that begs for its approval. How do we do this? First, by remembering what is truly ours. Epictetus divided the world into what is within our control and what is not. The opinions of others fall firmly into the second category. You cannot control what others think, say, or believe, but you can control your own actions, your own intentions, your own character. The more you anchor yourself to what is within your control, the less you are tossed about by what lie outside it. Second, by practicing exposure. If you fear judgment, face it. Speak the truth even when it is unpopular. Make choices that align with your values, even if others sneer. Each time you endure disapproval without collapsing, you strengthen the muscles of inner freedom. Like a soldier who trains by carrying heavier loads, you build resilience by carrying the weight of judgment until it no longer feels heavy. Third, by reframing the crowd. Instead of imagining others as judges, imagine them as mirrors, distorted, flawed, sometimes useful, often irrelevant. Their words may reflect something worth examining, or they may simply reflect their own ignorance. Either way, the mirror does not define you. It only offers a perspective. And perspectives, the Stoics remind us, are subject to reason. But perhaps the most radical Stoic practice for our age is this: to live content without being seen. To find joy in anonymity, in obscurity, in being unnoticed. Imagine the freedom of doing what is right without posting it, of succeeding without announcing it, of failing without explaining it. This is the life of someone who has broken free from the slavery of judgment. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, it is possible to live well even in a palace. Today, we might say, it is possible to live freely even in a world that never stops watching, if you refuse to be owned by the watchers. Modern slavery to judgment is subtle because it disguises itself as connection, as belonging, as participation in the world. But belonging purchased at the cost of your soul is not belonging. It is surrender. Connection that demands you betray yourself is not connection. It is a chain. The Stoic way offers a harder path but a freer one. To root your peace, not in the shifting sands of others' opinions, but in the bedrock of virtue. So ask yourself, who is your master? The strangers who scroll past your life in an instant, the neighbors who gossip without knowledge, the colleagues who applaud today and forget tomorrow? Or is it your own reason, your own conscience, your own alignment with nature? If it is the latter, then you are free. If it is the former, then you are enslaved, even if the chains are invisible. The world will never stop judging. But you can stop living as its prisoner. You can step out of the arena, wipe the dust from your face, and walk away from the applause and the jeers alike. That is the radical freedom Stoicism offers. And it is a freedom that our modern world, drowning in the noise of constant judgment, needs more desperately than ever. There is a secret doorway to freedom that most people never open. It is not hidden in libraries, nor in temples, nor in palaces. It lies in something far simpler and far more terrifying: the courage to be ridiculous. The courage to be laughed at, to be mocked, to be called strange or foolish, and to walk forward anyway. Why is this doorway so rarely opened? Because ridicule cuts deeper than many physical wounds. An insult may sting, but laughter wounds the ego. It paints us as clumsy actors in front of a crowd. It threatens the image we work so hard to maintain. And so, most people will contort their lives endlessly just to avoid appearing ridiculous. They will silence their beliefs, hide their passions, abandon their dreams, all for the sake of not becoming the object of laughter. But what is this except another form of slavery? If you cannot endure ridicule, you are owned by the crowd. The Stoics knew this truth well. Epictetus told his students bluntly, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Because the pursuit of wisdom, of virtue, of truth will often look absurd to those who live for comfort and applause. The man who refuses to gossip may be called arrogant. The woman who chooses simplicity over luxury may be mocked as poor or naive. The student who practices self-discipline instead of indulgence may be branded joyless. Yet it is these very choices that lead to freedom. To endure ridicule without bending is to prove that your compass is internal, not external. Consider Socrates walking barefoot through the streets of Athens, engaging strangers in relentless questioning. To many, he was a nuisance, a ridiculous old man asking childish questions. They laughed at him, they insulted him, and in the end, they condemned him to death. Yet Socrates remained calm, drinking the hemlock with serenity, proving that ridicule and condemnation cannot touch a soul that stands on principle. His courage to appear ridiculous became his greatest strength. Or take Diogenes, the cynic, who lived in a barrel, mocked the powerful, and performed outrageous acts to expose human hypocrisy. He was laughed at constantly, treated as a clown. Yet Alexander the Great, ruler of the known world, once said that if he were not Alexander, he would wish to be Diogenes. To coordinate two blades required absolute attention. No room remained for wandering thoughts. Because Diogenes was freer than any king, he did not fear judgment. He embraced ridicule, wielding it as a weapon against vanity. Even Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, had to accept this courage. His meditations are full of reminders not to care if others think him weak, strange, or naive. He knew that living by virtue would often clash with the expectations of the Roman elite. To act justly, he had to accept being misunderstood. To act with mercy, he had to endure being seen as soft. To act with humility, he had to be thought unworthy of his station. This is the paradox of courage. To live rightly is often to look wrong in the eyes of the world. But this courage is not only for philosophers and emperors. It is for you. Look at your own life. How many times have you avoided action because of the fear of looking ridiculous? You wanted to speak in public but feared stumbling. You wanted to confess love but feared rejection. You wanted to change careers but feared being mocked as reckless. You wanted to try something new but feared the laughter of friends. Each of these moments is a chain. Each of them keeps you from freedom. Now imagine the alternative. You act and they laugh and nothing happens. The world does not end. The sky does not fall. Their laughter echoes for a moment and then fades while you move forward. This is the secret. Ridicule is powerless unless you give it power. Like a shadow, it looks larger than it is. But when you walk into it, it vanishes. The courage to be ridiculous is, in truth, the courage to be human. Every great achievement, every bold step, every act of originality has looked foolish at first. The scientist who proposes a radical idea, the artist who breaks conventions, the leader who challenges tradition, all of them face laughter before they face recognition. To demand safety from ridicule is to demand a life of mediocrity. To embrace it is to open the path to greatness. This is why the Stoics saw ridicule not as an enemy but as a teacher. It tests your strength. It reveals whether your values are real or just borrowed from the crowd. If you collapse under laughter, your principles were fragile. If you stand firm, they were genuine. Ridicule exposes whether you live for truth or for applause, and in that exposure lies a chance for growth. How then can you cultivate this courage? First, by practicing small acts of indifference. Do something simple that might invite judgment. Wear plain clothes when others chase fashion. Choose silence in a conversation where gossip is expected. Admit ignorance when you do not know. Each act is a rehearsal. You teach yourself The looking foolish is not fatal. Second, by reframing laughter. When someone laughs at you, remind yourself, they laugh because they do not understand. And if they do not understand, their laughter is not a measure of you, but of them. A wise man once said, "The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what others think." Break out by smiling at your own mistakes, even laughing at yourself. When you laugh at yourself, the laughter of others loses its sting. Third, by focusing on the audience that matters. The Stoics taught that the only true audience is your own conscience. Imagine that your life is a play performed not before the crowd, but before the gods, before reason itself. If your conscience applauds, then no amount of ridicule matters. To be ridiculous, then, is not to be weak. It is to be strong enough to endure the misunderstanding of the world. It is to value truth over comfort, virtue over vanity, freedom over applause. It is to walk into the laughter of others with a steady step, knowing that beyond that laughter lies a kind of unshakable peace that only the brave ever find. So, the next time you hesitate, the next time you feel the weight of invisible eyes and the threat of ridicule, remember this: your courage is being tested. The question is not whether they will laugh. The question is whether you will stop walking because of it. And if you do not stop, if you walk on, foolish or strange or misunderstood, then you have already won. If we have seen that judgment is unavoidable, that approval is a dangerous addiction, that ridicule is a teacher, then the question becomes, what can we actually do? Philosophy, after all, is not meant to be words on a page or lofty ideas in the clouds. It is meant to be practiced. The Stoics never tired of reminding us that wisdom without practice is like medicine never taken. It looks impressive, but it heals nothing. So let us end by walking through the practices, the disciplines, the exercises by which you can conquer the fear of judgment, not in theory, but in daily life. He trained not only his sword, but his mind, until action flowed naturally, unbroken by hesitation. The division of control. Epictetus' most powerful teaching was also the simplest: separate what is within your control from what is not. When it comes to judgment, the opinions of others are never within your control. You cannot stop people from misunderstanding you, mocking you, or twisting your words. What lies within your control is how you act, what principles you follow, and how you respond. Write this truth down. Repeat it daily. Each time you feel the sting of judgment, whisper to yourself, "Their opinion is not mine. My virtue is mine." This habit loosens the chains little by little. If you do not know what to comment, just write, "Better every day, so I know you reached this far." Premeditatio malorum, the worst case imagination. The Stoics practiced imagining the worst possible outcomes so that fear would lose its grip. You fear being judged. Then imagine it in detail. Picture people laughing, whispering, criticizing. Feel the discomfort. Now ask yourself, even if all this happens, am I destroyed? We must understand why Musashi, a man of steel and blood, would speak of emptiness at all. Am I still capable of acting with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom? He lived with the sword in his hand, surrounded by death. Then what is there to fear? The practice of premeditation reveals that judgment, though unpleasant, is never fatal to the soul. You can endure it. And once you know you can endure it, its power weakens. The void was Musashi's way of naming what the Stoics called equanimity, the steady soul that is not disturbed by fortune, fear, or imagination. Voluntary discomfort, training against approval. The Stoics often embraced discomfort to train the soul. They would sleep on hard beds, wear simple clothing, eat coarse food to prove to themselves that comfort was not necessary for peace. We can adapt this practice against judgment. Do something deliberately simple, unadorned, or unusual. Wear plain clothes in a place obsessed with fashion. Speak honestly when silence would win approval. Admit ignorance when pretending to know would impress others. Each act is like lifting a weight, At first difficult, but over time it builds the strength to withstand disapproval. The view from above. Marcus Aurelius loved this exercise. He imagined himself rising above the earth, seeing the vastness of the world, the smallness of individuals, the fleeting nature of fame. From this height, the judgment of a single person, or even 1,000, shrinks to insignificance. The next time someone mocks or criticizes you, close your eyes and imagine the earth spinning beneath you. Picture empires rising and falling, stars burning for millions of years, and then ask, what is this judgment compared to the scale of time and nature? A whisper in the wind. The practice of silence. Not every attack requires a defense. The Stoics often practiced silence, not because they had no reply, but because they understood that silence can be the strongest reply of all. When someone judges you, resist the reflex to explain, justify, or retaliate. Let their words hang unanswered. In your silence, you prove to yourself that their judgment does not dictate your worth. Over time, this discipline builds an armor stronger than any argument, aligning with virtue, the true audience. Finally, remember the only audience that matters, your own conscience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you live in accordance with nature, you will never be poor. If you live by the opinion of others, you will never be rich." Each night, review your day. Ask yourself not, did they approve of me? But, did I act with virtue? Did I live justly, with courage, with self-control, with wisdom? If the answer is yes, then you have succeeded, no matter what the crowd says. If the answer is no, then you have work to do, but that work is yours, not theirs. To conquer the fear of judgment, then, is not to eliminate it completely. Fear may always whisper at the edges of your mind, but the Stoic way is to walk forward despite the whisper, to train yourself until the whisper loses its force. You will feel the gaze of others, but it will not paralyze you. You will hear the laughter of others, but it will not wound you. You will face the criticism of others, but you will not mistake it for truth. And in this freedom lies the great paradox. Once you no longer need approval, once you no longer tremble at judgment, you will often find that people respect you more. They sense the strength of someone who cannot be bought with applause or broken with insults. But even if they do not respect you, even if they continue to laugh, you will have something far greater than respect. You will have peace. The world will always judge. That is its nature. But you do not have to live as its prisoner. You can live as a Stoic, calm, grounded, aligned with virtue, unshaken by the noise around you. And when you live this way, you discover that the fear of judgment was never your enemy. It was your teacher, forcing you to build the courage, the strength, and the wisdom to stand free. So embrace the fear. Step into it. Let it sharpen you. And the next time the world's eyes turn toward you, remember, their gaze cannot harm you unless you allow it. Your freedom lies not in their silence or their applause, but in your refusal to be owned by either. That is the Stoic victory. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.